All right. We are going to do a lovely interview today with the Iva Svetilva, and we are going to learn more about balance and between the magic and the mundane. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to a little bit more about yourself, your journey, as well as how we know each other. A little juice.
Ooh, okay. Um, all right, I'll start with my journey and I'll have that tie into how we met. So, um, so I'm Eva and I'm an Aquarian Soulpreneur and mystical guide. And I'm so proud to be able to say that out loud because I have played with different labels and titles, and none of them really felt like really aligned and like they they described what I wanted to like say that like I could feel in my body. And these two right now are resonating so deeply. So I'm very excited. Um, but I'll also be really concise because I can go on a lot of side roads, as you know, Paula.
Yeah.
I went to college for accounting and I was studying for the CPA, which is to be a certified public accountant. And I had my spiritual awakening during this time. And one morning during my meditation, um I just felt like my heart was not in what I was doing. I was studying for this exam and all of the it was I was studying for like the financial accounting part, which was my least favorite of them all. But I just like was I was by we lived by this lake, and so I would go and walk around the lake and meditate. And because I had a few months before I started my job, so I was focused only on studying at that time. And so I would have a morning practice where I would go watch the sunrise and walk around the lake and run even. um and and one morning during my meditation, I just was like, what am I doing? And I started kind of questioning, like, do I really want to take myself down this path? Is this really what I want to be spending my time and effort doing? And I've always kind of, now looking back, been really interested in like spiritual stuff. But it just didn't really click as I was going through my journey. And then now I can look back and be like, oh wow, this was always there. Um, and I connected to some mentors. I did a psychic boot camp. And while still having traditional jobs, which was something that I was very resistant to in the beginning, I really wanted, I had this like misconception that like once I discover that I want to like do something in spirituality, that
Mhm.
like I would be all set and I could just manifest my like dream like business and that it'll just overnight be a success, and then I don't have to worry about, like money or like the jobs. And I'm here to tell you, at least my journey and a lot of the journeys that I've heard others do, because I also do believe everyone's journey is unique and I don't want to be um, putting any blanket statements out there. But what I experienced was that it it all unfolds in its own divine timing. And what I'm learning is really about enjoying the journey as I go, as walk up the mountain, to like really enjoy all the different parts of the mountain.
Mhm.
Um, and so along the way, I have discovered, mainly through podcasts, wonderful people in the spiritual community. And one of those was Blue. And then her and Reggie opened up a beautiful sisterhood called Fluorescence. And I joined the community, and that's where I met the lovely Paula, and she is such a dear sister, and I am so proud of her and the path that she's walked and the medicine that she brings. And I don't know if I've ever said this to you like directly, but you have such a beautiful way with your words, and you're so intentional with the way that you're creating your life. And I admire you so deeply for that. I'm so proud of you. And it's just such an honor to know you and to walk alongside you on this path.
Thank you so much. It means so much to hear that. Yes. Ah, such a beautiful journey that you've had as well. I just want to acknowledge that how it's just you waking up and realizing one day it's like, oh, what is this? I need something different in my life. I'm craving a different taste, a different flavor to life. And you
Yeah.
sought that. So it is such a blessing to be on this journey with you as well. And to witness you rise and just be in each other's like arms embrace to support one another is so, it's a privilege. So thank you so much. All right, let's get into some juicy questions. All right, so we're going to be talking about the balance between the magic and the mundane. So my first question to you is, what is an invitation to manage the balance between the magic and the mundane?
Mm. Like, what's an invitation I have for myself or that I like to invite others?
What was the invitation you felt in the beginning of your journey to seek the magic and the mundane, to have that balance between the two?
Ooh.
That's the best way, yeah, to word that.
Okay. Oh, but you're asking about like the balance between the two. So that's actually something that that's a more recent
Mm,
desire of having the balance.
okay.
Because when I first started my spiritual journey, I I have a lot of air energy in my astrological chart. I have an Aquarius stellium, and I have some Pisces in there. I think, or is Pisces a water sign? I don't know.
Mhm.
I do know I have a lot of air energy. But so I like to float up in the clouds and sometimes never want to come back down here. um, because it's so
Yes.
nice up there. Uh,
Yes.
but what I've been learning is that we are like, I personally believe, again, l- take what resonates and leave the rest for your viewers. Um, we're here. We have we have a mental side, we have an emotional side, we have a physical side, and we have a spiritual side. And so we're all of that in one. And so for me, it's been all about honoring all of those levels. Because if we're focused on, for a while, I was very focused on just the spiritual development and evolution. And then I wasn't taking care of my body. I wasn't taking care, I guess I was kind of taking care of my mental level because I was still like learning and like listening to podcasts and absorbing and learning from others.
Mhm.
But I was so focused on the spiritual, and it was almost like kind of unhealthy because it was very unbalanced because I was leaning into that side so much.
Yeah.
And so now my invitation is I check in with all of them because I know that in order to feel like really anchored and grounded, I need to be tending and nourishing to all of the levels. And it,
Mm.
it looks different every day. Maybe some days it's my body needs more rest, so I sleep in a little more. Or maybe I notice like I'm up in my head a lot with all these ideas and a lot of beautiful mental creation going on, but it's too much in that space. So then we're gonna slow it down and we're gonna focus on maybe some movement or just like resting or some water element and what's it called, like therapy.
Yes.
Like just really like finding that balance, I think. And for me too, a big part of it is like reminding myself that I am the magic. We are all the magic. The magic is literally within us. And the only the only reason we wouldn't see it is because we choose not to, because everything is a choice. We can live our lives a certain way, or we can choose something different. And neither is good or bad. It's just it is what our choice is. And I think that for me, what really helped me with that too is like taking radical responsibility, and 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 then when I'm feeling out of balance or low, taking the responsibility of I can get myself out of here. Because I
Mhm.
also was in, like, especially with the spiritual community, I was like running around and like wanting like support from others. So that was very unbalanced too, of like wanting support from someone else, but kind of like giving my power away and not really like taking ownership and doing it myself. And actually
Mhm.
my very first mentor in the spiritual space, um, she she was supporting me to learn animal communication, and she just had me dive right in because she knew I was, like, ready for it, but I wasn't ready for it. Like, I didn't feel like I was ready for
It's
it,
like,
but
here you go.
she was like, "Yep, just connect with this one. I'm not gonna give you any information. You just do it, and you let me know what you get." And I looked at her and kinda I asked her, like, are you gonna give me anything else, or is this kind of it? And it's just all you're telling me is that it's a cat?" And she's like, "Yep, that's all you got." And so, um, so yeah, like really building that. And I think we were kind of chatting about this too, like a little bit before we recorded, where
Mhm.
um that like inner empowerment, that's the word that I love to use, where it's like we
Mm.
feel that within us to move forward, to pursue our dreams, to empower others, to support others, to collaborate and co-create. And yeah, so
So good. I loved all of what you had to share. Yes. Inner empowerment, I feel like, is the biggest piece,
yeah.
especially when you're like maintaining the balance between yourself, like your needs and the needs of others. And it's like your internal world and external world. It's like, how do you embody that? You just got to do it. You just got to listen to that. And I love it. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, love.
All right. My second question. All right. So, what has worked for you in creating routine to listen to that which is needed within you? I think you touched on a little bit of that, but what has paint a picture of what it's like to listen to your needs between knowing when it's time to dive into the inner world and knowing when it's like time to come out and be in your like masculine and dive into like the action states and be able to take responsibility for your actions as well of what you're creating in life. So what is the balance between, I guess I would say, masculine and feminine, of turning inwards and coming outwards?
Mm, that's a really good question.
Mm.
Um, this is something that that again is like more recent in my life. I love this is so divine. Like we didn't talk about what the questions would be. You were just like,
Mm-mm.
this is the theme. And I was like, oh, I'm actually doing that right now. So okay, so masculine and feminine. And also for anyone who may not be familiar with these concepts, just real quick, so we all have masculine and feminine energy within us. The masculine supports us in creating and like being like a container. Also, it's more of like the action, taking the action, giving, and then the feminine is all about like more the fluidity and um receiving and kind of being the thing in the container, if you will, if we're
Mhm.
staying with those analogies.
Mm.
And so I think like I think every moment is an opportunity to feel into what you need throughout your day, because at any moment things can change. Like, you can wake up feeling so energized, and then something happens, and then you're like, "Oh, I need to flow back a little and kind of
Mm,
like take a step back." And so I think a big part of it is like tuning into our bodies. Um that has been a huge practice for me of really in the moment. When in high school, I would like reach out to 10 different people asking them for their opinions for on
mm,
something.
yep.
Now I tune into my body and I ask, how do I feel about this? And I pay attention to what my body is sharing. And also with making decisions, I'm tuning into my body and asking, and really feeling into it. And sometimes if I feel like I'm activated or there's like a really big emotion that I'm feeling, I know that, okay, we're gonna take us like we're gonna give ourselves some space to process this and be with this, and we're going to make this decision later. So
Mm.
to your question, to that part of the question where it's like that which is needed, I would say it's like, oh, this is so beautiful because this is part of my like one-on-one that I have.
Oh,
It's tuning into your own rhythm.
ooh,
That's what I feel like we are really desiring, like kind of on like a deeper level, is to reconnect with that rhythm. Because when we look at nature, nature has its own rhythm, and it's so beautiful, and it like there is no like wrong time to do anything. It just flows. And if the leaf doesn't fall off the tree today, maybe it does in like a few days, but it doesn't matter that the other leaves had fallen like 3 weeks ago and this one is still hanging on. Like, nature really honors that. Like, nature is such a beautiful teacher of pure presence.
mhm,
So, yeah. And I also, in my morning meditation that I do, I love connecting to the rhythm of Mama Gaia.
mm,
So I'll connect to her core, and then I just set the intention of attuning my rhythm to hers and kind of helping, asking her to for some support in like recalibrating my rhythm. So that's another little mini magical practice.
so beautiful. Ah, when you said tune into your inner rhythm, I so resonate deeply with that. It's like when I look back at my younger self, a little T, um, I was I was so known for like, it's like, Paula, you're over there. Just you're just dancing to your own rhythm when no music was going. And I was like, yeah, I am the vibe because I am the music. Everything I
Yeah.
like my breath is the music that just flows through my body. Like the way my body creaks and cracks whenever I stretch and just move and allow it to be motion, lotion for the motion. It's it's so good and so important to listen to ourselves because I feel like in today's society where you have like this external world telling you what to do at every moment, like I feel like the people who aren't aware of their own choices, it's hard for them to pay attention to their own voices. So it's so good. It's so good that you said it's so important to mind your own rhythm. Listen to that
Mhm.
first before you listen to anyone else's. So good. All right.
Mhm.
Last question I had before we freestyle. Um,
Mm.
what in your day to day, what boundaries do you keep to separate the two, or do you have them like constantly in flow of knowing when to drop into the magic and be like, I can change this moment by simply changing my choices? Or do you allow the happenings of the mundane to overtake you? If you do, then do you go with the flow? How do you manage between the real life stuff and then knowing that you can change that by choosing?
Mm.
It's a good question.
It is. I have a few things that flowed. Um, so all of the above to what all everything you listed. I've experienced all of it, and I'm sure all of those tuning in have also experienced some of the same situations. So between your question was kind of like more like navigating between the magic, or like how to infuse the magic in the mundane. Can you clarify that real quick?
Yes. How do you navigate, and it's just how do you navigate life between knowing that we can choose certain situations we go through to allowing the unfortunate things to happen and dive down them? Like, how would you navigate that in an example for the viewers? Like, I know there are some times where people can allow, they say, like, oh, this just happened to me, or really, was it just the choice that they were unconscious about? So how do you
Mhm.
see that in your own point of view?
Mm. Well, um, I believe that everything we experience in some form we are attracting, whether it's conscious or unconscious.
Mm,
Um, I'm still kind of learning about the piece where sometimes like other people's energies are involved. So maybe it's not
mhm,
fully like you called it in, but I do feel like on some level there's something in our energy that was still a match to that, no matter how small of a part of our energy it was.
mhm,
Um, whenever unfortunate or um, challenging situations occur to me, I used to play victim. I used
mm,
to be in victim mode and try to tell everyone about the unfortunate situation and receive all the pity, and now that I've grown my awareness, I'm like, okay, so this happened, and I just ask one question, which is, what is the higher purpose of this? What is this
mm,
here to teach me? And and also the hard thing to do is to take that radical responsibility in the moment and say, okay, I can see how this kind of happened because I wasn't, on top of my energetic hygiene, or I do have a limiting belief that's kind of been running in the background that I picked up or created. um, I think the important piece of this puzzle that I do want to really shed light on for those tuning in is, it's so important when this happens. And if you choose to ask why, please, please, please do not shame, judge, or blame or guilt yourself for it. That adds like extra layers of energy that does not support you in the situation. And so if the situation is activating, it's important to first regulate, whether you do that yourself or you ask someone to support you in regulating. And once you're in like a more grounded, centered space, then maybe looking at the situation and if you're wanting to explore it to understand deeper. But
mhm,
I think it can be kind of tricky because if we start asking why did I choose this, or why did I create this, when all these things start kind of piling up, well, it's the universe, it's a reflection of something, at least that's what I believe. It's a
mhm.
reflection, and it's just trying to show you something. It's trying to show you something's out of alignment, something is like, just not working for you. And it's the universe kinda giving you that, like, gentle or maybe not so gentle nudge of,
Yeah.
"Hey, you gotta go this way now." And I mean, we have free will, but also if you've ever told yourself, like, "I desire this, I really want this," then the universe has your back, and it's going to support you in that. So, like, for instance, one example is I've heard like when COVID happened and people lost their jobs, like some
Mm,
people lost jobs. And although in society's views that can be looked at as, oh, you lost your job, that's bad.
yep.
um, but it's interesting because if you asked, I heard that like a speaker say this, he had a room full of people and asked them, how many of you lost your jobs during COVID? And then a
Mhm.
bunch of people raised their hands. And then he said, I'm willing to bet that those of you raising your hand at some point or another have said that you wanted to get out of that job.
Yes.
So it's sometimes it doesn't unfold in the way that we think or in the timing that we think, but we just have to remember that like we have life in us just as everything does, and that has its own intelligence and rhythm to it. So the more that we can, this kind of goes back to the previous question, there's moments to surrender and flow, and then there's moments to take the action. And what I personally play with is tuning into my intuition, which I call my inner magic,
Mm,
of course.
of
Look at all the
course.
sparkles and magic. um
Yes.
and um so I kind of do this where I tune into the inner magic, and then from there I kind of oh, this is another thing I do with situations that are uncomfortable or challenging to navigate. I'll ask
Mhm.
my inner magic directly, like, what's going on? um so that really supports, because then you're hearing from that part of us that is source, God, um like the divine. It's all within us, and it's always very loving and very
Mm,
peaceful. It doesn't experience like the way, it's not our human part, it's the that like magical part. So yeah, so tuning into that is a beautiful practice too, to kind that helps really bring a lot of peace of mind, I think, around situations. And I think the next step after that is when you've kind of looked at the situation, you can kind of understand like, okay, or if you notice a pattern happening, like, okay, this is the third time this similar situation happened, this is catching my attention for some reason. And then you want to either release it if it's something that's not serving you, or see like where you want to go from there, and that's kind of like your crossroads. But I do believe that we can infuse every moment with magic, because we are magic. So we have it within us. And that's actually something that my inner magic told me once, where it was like, you are the magic. It's not out here, it's here. And then it's kind of like our fingers are like fairy wands, like anything we touch can be magical. And so it's all about the way that you view it. It's your perspective, and the way that you're choosing to view it is like such a key part. Um, because I've had days where I felt very, very low, and I knew I was choosing to continue feeling that low.
mhm.
Um, and to stay spinning in that mental loop of how I'm feeling in the situation and just keep going and going and going. And I just say that at the end of the day, there's always a choice. There's always a choice in every moment. And what's beautiful about that is, just as we have the choice to continue looping in that, we also have the choice to ask for support or resource ourselves. Everyone's going to be on a different spectrum of how much support versus how much self support they need.
Yeah.
And really like also being aware of that, like what are the moments, when do you need to actually reach out for support from others? Because there's also people that are always trying to be very independent and do everything themselves, and sometimes they need to be reaching out to the community for support. but they're so resistant to that, and so it's, I think, it's a really deep journey of self-discovery,
Mm.
and just being really in tune with yourself, like how you are, and learning more about yourself, like whether that's through astrology or human design, gene keys, hypnotherapy sessions. Like the more that you start diving into yourself, the more you learn about yourself. And then you start to also observe yourself in situations and reflect, like, oh, I did this or I said this, and how did that feel? And then the body, like, don't forget the body. I feel like
Yes.
we're learning how to connect deeper, but yeah.
The wind is so, I can hear it when you speak, how fluid everything is. I have a practice of listening deeply to like the wind and how it flows and how everything is, the inspiration comes through it. So hearing you speak is literally like a loving, refreshing, like gust of wind. So I'm just like, ah, I can hear you talk for like ever.
I can
Thank you
talk
so much.
forever.
I've noticed you answered all my questions, and above, you've really like touched on all the different, you've talked about a little bit about shadow work, which shadow work is essentially into self-discovery. I feel like a lot of people, when they hear the word shadow work, they're like, ooh, it's mysterious. What is this? It's spicy. And it's really just self-discovery and learning more about ourselves and how certain things make us feel in our day-to-day, and how we can learn from that and allow that little that piece of gold to just be our ticket into opportunities that we get to unlock for ourselves. So so good. What more do you feel on your heart that needs to be shared in the topic of maintaining the magicness and tapping into that to be unlocked, as well as maintaining the mundane? Any thoughts?
Mm. Ooh, I just felt so much energy.
I'm like, there's so much to share.
I know. Ooh, let's see. Which one wants to be shared first? Okay. So I think that practicing compassion with ourselves, but like especially our human self that is here on this physical plane, that is trying their best. Really, we're all trying our best with what we know, with the tools we have.
Ah,
And I just think grace and compassion for the humanness, and not labeling it as bad or lesser than, especially in like the spiritual community. Sometimes there can be a hierarchy and a spiritual ego, and I've experienced my own spiritual ego. So I'm speaking
mhm.
from, my own experience there, which I'm not the most proud of, but I'm also not like shaming myself for, because
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
um but yeah, like just grace and compassion for the human. The human is the one that is here to experience all of the emotions, whether whatever vibration they are. um and I think that we don't always give our humanness enough credit for what
Mm.
it is, because it's over here kind of like this like avatar in a video game, like on this journey, and everyone has different journeys, like I don't know if you've ever thought about this. I've thought about this like so many times, where I'm just walking and I'm just like, here I am in the US, like on this path walking my dogs, and I know that there's someone across an ocean, like in Bali, because right now there's a lot of people going to Bali, so that one's the top of my mind.
Yep.
In Bali, watching a monkey walk across their path, or like looking out at the rice paddies. And so I just think that's so fascinating. Like you can we have like Mama Gaia is so vast and so beautiful, and she has so much to offer us. And I personally really want to explore more of her.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
but it's just so amazing, like how we can have such different experiences and different lives and be focusing our time on different things. And so that's kind of where I bring it back to, like, it's all a choice, because the difference between part of my journey that I didn't share, is that I moved, within the last few years, to a different state. I lived in Illinois for like my whole time here in the U.S., and then my partner and I moved up to Wisconsin, which isn't too far of a of a move, but
It's a
it's
move.
still a different,
It's an
it's a
energetic
different,
shifting.
yeah, oh yeah. And so, and so then, what was really beautiful was that when we did that, we we partially inspired one of his brothers to also move. And he
Oh,
moved to California, and he had been wanting to move to California for years, and he was miserable here. He was miserable in Illinois. And so I think it all comes down to the choice. We all have a choice, and and the only person that's standing in the way is us. And I don't mean that in like beat yourself up and get mad at yourself, but
yeah.
like just take that responsibility that it's on you, that it's you, like you're the one. Just as you can choose not to do that, you can choose to do it too. And so it's up to you, and there's a sense of like freedom in that, you know? Um, the second,
So good.
did you have something you wanted to anything you wanted to share on that before I share the next one?
Freedom is the word that has been stamped on my soul since the very beginning. So hearing you say that word, as well as the other word you mentioned, puzzle, that was a word I was thinking of when you were talking about, and I was like, it's kind of like a puzzle. And when you said it, I was like, yes, it is like a puzzle. Life is like a puzzle where certain things will fall into place at certain times, and they are the opportunities that we get to really like branch out and dissect and really like discern as well. So the freedom comes within being able to just look at the different how do I explain this? This is like the different cups laid out before you. And it's like, which cup can I take from this experience? You can either choose to um overreact, you can choose to just allow it to be, or you can choose the middle path, which is witness both of them and allow it to learn from the experience of like, okay, I can take myself out of the equation and just see like, okay, this is how it would be if I weren't to overstep. And then you can just dive down the path of like, okay, I'm a full on overreact and just create chaos. And then there's the middle route where you can just be like, you can be a participant and at the same time protect yourself and your own energy. I feel like that's so
Mhm.
important. And just be a witness to what is out there, to what is within us as well, to whatever we're feeling, because it's like it's all an alphabet to our experience. I feel like that we get to go down and understand from every little detail of our lifestyles. So that's what
Mm,
flowed in.
I love that.
Thank you. Thanks, Spirit. Yes. Are you feeling anything else within the inner journey? I feel like that's the biggest thing, just knowing when to feel guided in certain pieces in our inner journey. You have anything to
Mhm.
share on that?
When to feel guided? What what do you mean?
When to listen to the call to our inner journeys to either, oh, Spirit, what you trying to say?
Like
When
to
do you,
follow the nudges?
when to, yes, thank you. When to follow the nudges. I could not get the words out.
It's okay,
Yes.
I got you. I listen through energy, so I can like feel it before you put the words to it.
Thank you.
Um, I mean, I personally try to the majority of the time, but
Mm.
also I don't always listen right away.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes it takes me a few weeks to actually take the action that my inner magic had guided me to. But for me, it's very like, it's actually very interesting. I think more recently I've noticed that I'll just feel like it's the time to do this. Like
Mm.
I was driving in the grocery store one day, and then I was gonna I was driving by, this credit union that I had an account with, and I had been meaning to close that account down because I wasn't really using it, and as I was on that road about to pass the credit union, I just felt like, "Today is the day. Go in there and close your account." And I was
Mm.
like, "Okay," but, like, it's fascinating because I mentally was telling myself, like, "I need to get that done. Like, I need to do that," and every single week, it would, like, be on my to-do list, and it wouldn't get done. But I noticed that the more I kind of, like, surrender to the timing and trust, things get done in the right, like, time, like, I'm not late on anything, but I also have a different experience because I tried to close that account out, but then I had it like a different day months before, but then a check hadn't cleared, and so it wasn't the right time. And when I went in there, like the vibe was like very like cold and weird. And this
Yeah.
time I had a really pleasant experience. So
Mm.
so I just I think the first step people can take if they're not in the practice of this is
Mhm.
just starting to notice, like just noticing, like, how is your inner magic talking to you? Whether you receive visuals or it's more of like a knowing. For me, it's more of like a knowing. Like I'll just like feel it, and it's just like, this is it. Like I don't know how else to describe it.
Yes.
I'm just like, it I just know, like, I don't question it, like, it's
Mhm.
um, and just really, like, tuning into that. Also, human design is a beautiful tool for, like, decision making and connecting to your inner magic. I'm a sacral generator, so I ask myself yes or no questions
Mm.
to really, like, make the decision and feel into it that way. Um, and with all of this, I do wanna say that it don't forget the fun. Like, this is all fun and it can be playful. And yes, you can have serious decisions to make or decisions that feel serious, but just yeah, like just breathe and just don't forget to also be playful with it because we're not here to be these like uptight little people walking around on Mama Gaia. Like we're here to be ourselves and to connect and just and play this life however we want to. Um, the other piece that I do want to share, yeah, we're still gonna share it. I was just tuning in. I was like, is it still aligned to share?
Yes.
So it is about children and about
Mm.
the magic that children are and the magic that they bring. Because when we think about it, they have just come from the other side, from source. And so when
Mhm.
they come through to this earth, they're more connected than some adults because they're so like pure and like they're just now starting the journey to explore what this place is. And so the more that we can cultivate that and just learn from them too and give them the honor, I think that every stage deserves honor. Is actually I want to swap out that word because it's been kind of feeling weird to me lately, but
Mm.
every
Mhm.
stage is worthy of
Ah,
honor from
yes.
childhood to teenage years to adulthood, and then like when we have elders. Each of those stages serve a different role, and they brings just so much to us, so much different medicine, so much different experiences, and I really think that we can learn from everyone, but especially when talking about magic, like, children aren't afraid to tap into their imagination, and I believe the imagination is us creating in the quantum and tuning into other, like, unseen realms, and we're told that that's not real, and so we shut it down and we write it off that it doesn't matter, but really, that's the place to connect to, and children do it so naturally when they're not being told that they're not allowed to or it's not okay. So I just want to speak that, and I think that future generations are coming in a lot stronger, and like, they're just very, very unique and coming in a lot stronger and, like, and more aware. And I
Yes.
think that the generations now that are parents too have more awareness and are desiring to live more consciously. So they're also supporting and cultivating that within them. So it's really beautiful to see, and I'm excited to see how things unfold. Mm.
I keep saying we are alive at a good time. A lot of people like to see it as, oh, this is where the end of times. Like there's the book, The Tale of Two Stories, where like it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, in quotation mark. And I find that
Mhm.
beautiful where it's like I choose to not participate in the wording of it's the worst of times, it's the best of times, where a lot of magic is coming back into the world, whether people choose to realize it or not. And it's Spirit wants me to talk a little bit more about this. So yes, the magic is coming into the world now, and a lot of powerful people are really activating in certain parts of the planet so that magic can come back into the world. And I've been paying attention to that community as they do that, and ah, you can feel it. You can feel it whenever you're like aware with it of like the moments of magic. It's happening a lot more out often. It whether it's I'm out there staring up in the night sky. I literally have a practice with the moon to just stare at the moon each night when she's out there in her full bloom. And when you pay attention and just allow your mind to just like be unclouded, whatever comes through, the guidance, the wisdom, whatever directions we feel on our journey, it just comes through so fluently, so beautifully, and like I feel like without much resistance. So there's many moments of magic where we can tap into the mundane. We just got to pay attention to them. It's
Mm. Yes. As you're speaking, this is making me think about animal spirits and animal medicine and how the animals have shown up for both of us. And they're
yes.
like, I keep seeing hawks everywhere here.
Yes, here too.
Really? Ah,
They're always between vultures and hawks. They're always, and
yes,
whenever I
those
see
little
them,
twins.
oh my gosh, so aligned. But yes, whenever I see them, I now see them as okay, where can I have higher perspective?
Yeah.
What within me? Yeah. It's like what am I not looking at in myself, and where do I have to zoom out from my experience or my situations and really be like, okay, I can't be so like tunnel vision all the time. It's really just it clouds us whenever we're staring at the screens all the time. What happens? Like our eyes get hurting, and then like or just start to cloud, and we just start to see real foggy. Like that's the times where we need to just unplug ourselves and just have that higher perspective to really drop in and be like, okay, I know where I am, I know where I came from, and I know where I'm going. So it's
Mhm.
zooming out that so much magic flowing through right now. But yes, the
Yeah.
hawks are so powerful. So if you ever see a hawk, just know they symbolize, well, that you can always have your own symbolism and only all different meanings to certain animals. They don't have to mean the same thing. And I want to emphasize that. But for me, and as you said, for you, hawks definitely symbolize the higher perspective and
Yeah.
zooming out from situations and from people as well. So
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, I love questions. Let's do it.
Um, how are you infusing magic into your life right now?
It is a coming back home practice. There was a time, and I experimented with this unconsciously, where I left my morning practice, I left my nighttime practice, and I wanted to experiment to be able to see how of an effect that would have on my humanness.
Mhm.
So much disconnection. So
Mm.
now my practice is every night before I fall asleep, have this time to be able to. My biggest thing is I'm a starseed. I will always connect to the stars at nighttime, and it's like daytime. Ooh, woo, no. Me, it's like I feel like I do appreciate being able to wake up early and just be out there and exposed to the sun. But my soul really calls for being able to take the time at nighttime to go outside, talk to the moon, talk to the stars, really tune into like, okay, we're really on this ball of rock, just floating at ass spanking speeds. And it's like, how can I be able to be anchored in knowing that if I am out here essentially an ant in this universe, what part do I have to play? And it's like, what magic can I tap into with my inner knowing? So my inner magicness really comes through from allowing the silence each night to tap into what's calling for my inner voice. So it's an inner listening practice, yes. And just remembering where we came from and who we are. It's not this flesh and bones. It's not just the flesh and bones. It's more so of looking at the interconnectivity between the universe and what our soul. Like my biggest practice is how can I connect to my soul? How can I connect to what just pulses in me that you can just feel it, like whenever you feel your highest excitement, what do you feel? Do you feel like that jumping joyness, that like sporadic, like energetic, like that's what I call my soul. Whenever I can feel myself super just passionate and excited and just ready for life, I'm like, yes, she's awake right now, my soul is awake and
Mm.
she's ready to take on whatever life throws at her and chooses to dance with the duality of life. So thank you for that lovely question.
You're welcome. That's so beautiful. You've done that, like, from the moment I met you, where you were, like, very in tune with yourself and, like, how you're expressing and what you're feeling internally, and
Mm,
I feel like this is so powerful right now
mm,
because I think so many of us were either conditioned or just didn't know, like, I didn't know how to connect to myself. I was not connected to myself until just in the last, like, few years. I went my
mhm,
whole life for 20 something years not connected to myself, not really knowing, like, who is Eva? And I think that's what I'm saying, like, I think these new generations coming in, what's so beautiful to witness is they are establishing that from very early on. They're really, like, playing and expressing and tuning in, and it's really beautiful, and I think that we are creating a lot of shifts in the world and to make it a better place. Um, yeah, I will say that I've had moments of darkness and questioning, like, why I'm here. And
yes.
sometimes those can feel really scary because, at least like in my experience, I felt like, what's the point? Like, I
Mhm.
think people call it like an existential crisis where you're like, what am I doing here? I don't really feel like
Exactly.
I have a purpose. And then you start to feel really low. Um, and I just wanted to share that it's it's such tricky territory because I feel like sometimes when people are in that space, they need to come back to a more regulated state before they can take another step.
Yes.
Um, but I guess I kind of kept just playing with, okay, well, maybe there is a reason that I'm here. Like I believed that, but then I wasn't
Mhm.
like in my body, I felt like I was questioning it, you know?
Yeah.
And so then I finally was like, okay, I think I'm here for big things. Like I'm here to create something. I'm here to connect with people in some way. And I just kept holding on to that little thread
Yeah.
when I felt that way. And now, like as you and I are speaking, like I can feel like, yes, like we are here and we're here for a reason and we're here to support this evolution
Yes.
in humanity. And I'm just like really grateful for continuing on it because I do think that it is a beautiful time to be alive. And I mean, at any point in time, there's so much going on. Um, the last thing I'll say is like I learned from this one mentor around like creation, like cycles of creation. And she talked
Mm.
about how like there's cycles within cycles and cycles next to cycles all the time. And she like you'll love this. So she talked about like there could be a full moon and then there could be which is like that's kind of like the summer energy, like the most like expression, the highest expression of the moon. And
Mhm.
then she was like, but it could be fall and the trees could be like like letting go of their leaves and releasing. And then like as women, we have our own cycles. You could be in spring and feeling that regenerative energy. And all of this is happening simultaneously and like right next to each other sometimes.
Mhm.
So I just thought that was really beautiful, and I felt called to speak that into the space before we wrap up.
Yes, it is because it's like you said in the beginning, no one journey is the same. Like it's all going to be different all the time, every single time. Like everyone's going to be going through their own stuff at every moment. And it's like how we navigate holding into account where we are on a journey and where others are on their own journey. It's like, okay, like how can we maneuver and, be able to be in balance with ourselves and others. I feel like that's a big word that
Mm.
balancing, balancing for sure. It's like knowing when our needs are more important or others, just to kind of forget about the self, to be selfless and really show up for others as well as important. It's like knowing when to be external or internal in our own journeys, and just
Mm.
community, being support for in the community is so important as well. It's like we can't always be internal because then, you know what I mean, we wouldn't be of service to who needs to be of service to. So it's important to be aware and conscious of like what medicine is needed in every moment. It's like, is the medicine for me or is the medicine for somewhere else? Somewhere else, someone else. It could look like if you're in a park and you see like trash on the ground, pick that up, then you're being of service to the planet. If someone else is in distress, be of service to them because they needed that medicine. And there are times where you can be a little bit on empty and you're like, okay, the best service I can be to the planet right now is to myself by returning within. It's like knowing when. I feel like that's the important piece, is being in balance with the magic and the mundane, is knowing what medicine is ripe at the right time.
Yeah.
Yes. This has been so
Mm.
much fun. So much gold nuggets of wisdom in this. I just want to acknowledge that.
Yes, I'm so excited.
Yes. Thank you so much, Eva, for allowing me to ask you all these lovely questions and for asking me questions as well.
Thank you, Paula. It's so amazing to co-create this with you.
Yes, thank you. All right, for all your viewers, I'm gonna end the recording here, and then you can leave us a message. All the info will be in there, so you can always contact either of us if you need space to be held in. We are always here for your support. All right.
Yes.
Lots of love.